crossed.
Do you know who's in this room? Are you aware of who's in the room with us? Because you and I have never done a tidy anything.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know. It's so weird.
Books. 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 Books.
Hello and welcome to Didn't Read It.
Season 2! Oh, never mind. This won't be like even the first or second episode. It's definitely not the first.
Yeah, this is gonna be a ways away.
Okay, never mind. You can start over.
But you know what? It's your first appearance on season 2.
That's right.
And I'm
Worth celebrating.
I am here for the enthusiasm.
Worth screaming about.
I am excited that you are excited.
I'm excited because I know that this is the height of excitement for the rest of the episode.
Didn't Read It, the podcast that has Maddie on it again. Hi.
Hi. Welcome, everyone. Gentle reader, listener.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, once again, every time I think I say less and less about myself. My name's Maddie. I work in marketing. Grace is my friend. I like to read, but nothing too serious, which is why I'm here, so that Grace can tell me something dark. Because I don't want to read it myself.
I mean, it's only about the end of the world. That's fine, right? ... Question mark? That's cheer. Look,
we're there.
Millennials are very nihilistic.
We have lived through it.
So
it's fine.
What's the problem?
Stop whinging, would you?
Maddie, is there anything you would like to share before we getting on this journey of ours?
I just finished watching The Discovery of Witches.
Oh, how's that?
So I read the first book, and I couldn't finish the second one, which meant I didn't try to read the third one. And I found the show to be better, which is very rare.
You know,
I liked it. I mean, it's like fluff, but I had a very overstimulating weekend last weekend, and then sat and binged that, and it really helped my over spicy brain just chill out. The second season is set in 1590 England, in London.
Okay.
And it includes a bunch of historic, so Christopher Marlowe's in it,
Oh.
Sir Walter Raleigh's in it, the Queen of England's in it. So there's all these famous people that show up, and that's kind of fun.
Did they make Marlowe,
Yes,
good?
they did. He has a unrequited love for the main character.
Oh.
That leads him to make some calculating and devious choices.
Oh ho.
But it was enjoyable.
Good.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mention a show that was honestly better adapted to the screen than on the page, because I won't quite go that far with the book I have brought you here to discuss today. But as I was reading it, I could not stop thinking about the fact that I really want to see this adapted for the screen, only because of the way that the prose has aged. It's worth reading. I'm glad I read it. I am excited to share it with you, but I think it would be a really killer high budget miniseries.
We're talking an HBO 10 episode.
Yeah, it would have to be, they'd have to really dig in. They'd have to have good costumes. But I want to see an adaptation of this book.
All right.
And
this was the theme of the last one that we did.
Was it?
We both were oh, Regency Buck, they should make this into a show.
Oh, yeah.
People would watch this.
You're my official why hasn't this been adapted for the screen correspondent now.
I'm here, tapping in.
And with all of that said, Maddie, I have brought you here today to discuss Mary Shelley's The Last Man. Are you familiar?
No. I've read Frankenstein, and therein lies the end of my knowledge of Mary Shelley.
Fair enough.
As I think probably 95% of people alive experience with Mary Shelley.
I do think that is unfortunately the case. Her reputation sort of begins and ends at Frankenstein.
Yes.
So this novel she wrote after Frankenstein.
Okay. And for the readers, because while I've read Frankenstein, beyond that, I don't really know very much about her. Was it a commercial success at the time of publication? It was, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It was, actually, speaking of adaptations, Frankenstein was adapted to the stage not very long after it came out, and the play, while it was kind of a travesty in terms of how much it resembled the plot of the book, was wildly successful, made Mary Shelley famous, and cemented Frankenstein's sort of reputation in popular culture.
Okay, cool. But then she kept writing, and everyone was like, we don't care about that as much.
Well,
or at the time, did all of her other works remain popular at the time, and we've just sort of decided
so
Frankenstein is it?
This novel, The Last Man, was a critical flop.
Cool, here for it.
I don't think it deserved to be, but it was. But the other big thing that happened between when Frankenstein was written and when this novel was written. So Frankenstein was written in 1818, and this novel was written from like 1823 to 1824 and was published in 1826. And the big thing that happened between those two events is that Mary Shelley's husband died.
Okay.
Mary Shelley became Mary Shelley when she married Percy Shelley, the famous poet.
Yes.
And cad and romanticist.
An all-around cad.
Who left his then pregnant wife to run off with Mary Shelley.
Cool.
Impregnated Mary Shelley.
Double cool.
Married Mary Shelley after his first wife committed suicide.
Ooh, negative cool.
And then after sort of taking Mary Shelley away to live a life of poetry and scandal, promptly drowned.
Wow.
Leaving her all alone.
With a baby.
With a child and a lot of scandal.
That's cool.
And no real means of supporting herself.
Cool.
Yep. The Mary Shelley that you encounter sort of online, cool hip Mary Shelley, like gothic Queen of Our Hearts Mary Shelley, that's kind of the gal who wrote Frankenstein.
We're not that gal anymore.
The woman who wrote The Last Man is a woman who has been through so much hell. She has lost her husband. She has lost her husband's like bestie and one of the other sort of leading lights of her life, Lord Byron. She has lost all of her friends. Percy Shelley's family are actively trying to keep her from publishing. They won't let her publish under her own last name.
So this Mary Shelley has seen some shit.
And she is older, wiser, more mature, and also,
I would assume, incredibly jaded.
You know, I don't think so. But,
okay.
But
understandably so if she was.
I will let you decide after we make it through the novel if you think, because the novel was accused of being without hope, like too much of a downer. The critical reception at the time, a lot of the reviews boiled down to like, why is this woman being such a bummer?
I don't know, because her life is a f***ing bummer. I don't know. Maybe that sort of life imitates art is real.
But I'm not sure I agree, actually. I don't know. I will let you decide for yourself.
All right. But when she starts writing this, Percy still lives.
No, he's dead.
Oh.
Yeah, she doesn't start writing this until
after he dies. Okay.
Yep. I think this is the first full-length work she completes after his death.
Does she write anything full-length in between Frankenstein and this?
I think so. I'm pretty sure.
This is just a pure curiosity question now. Now I'm like, maybe I need to know more about Mary Shelley.
She wrote in some like 5 novels, I think.
Okay.
But she has the incredible distinction of being considered the first person to write novels of 2 different genres. So,
okay.
Frankenstein, you will often see people credit Frankenstein with being like one of the first works of science fiction or like one of the first true horror novels. And those are a little bit more wibbly. But The Last Man is widely considered to be the first modern work of apocalyptic fiction.
Wow. All right. She's just like, I'm going to blaze that trail.
She just rolled in and was like, boom.
Here's new genres.
2 of them.
Suck it.
Take that.
You thought you could bring me down when my terrible life was sucking me down to the drain? Here, have a whole new genre. Feel my pain.
An incredible woman. Gone too soon. She died in her 50s of a brain tumor.
Yes, that's young and very sad. But I'm also like, that was so much of her life that she had to live after all of this happened.
Yeah.
And just like, have your life be a bummer.
I mean,
I'm sure it got better,
yeah.
but still.
This was definably like a low point.
Can't wait to read what she was thinking at her lowest. All right, Mary.
Here we go.
Buckle up.
So the last thing I will say before we get started is that The Last Man is written in 3 volumes. And because it is very, very dense, because it is literally like a world-spanning, world-ending book, we are going to do 3 episodes and tackle 1 volume per episode. So this is going to be a 3-parter.
Bless.
I will warn you right now. But I think if you bear with us, there's a lot here.
Question.
Answer.
Were the volumes published separately or all at the same time in a single edition?
I assumed that they were published serially. So I'm pretty sure they came out all as 1 volume in 1826. And then it actually wasn't, another edition was not released until the 60s.
Oh, so people really didn't like it. It was not just a little bit of a flop.
It was a major flop.
Okay, Mary.
But I genuinely think it was a major flop, not because there is nothing worthwhile here, but because people were mad at Mary Shelley for being a woman who bummed them out. And some of the reviews that I read of the era say that almost verbatim.
How dare you be a sad woman? Here in front of my face? How could you?
It's gross, honestly.
It sounds, in general, like a book before its time and a genre before its time in some ways.
Oh my God, yes.
Because you don't really see, like, apocalyptic stuff, the rise of that kind of stuff until later.
It doesn't really take off until much later.
Yeah, so not only was it a bummer of a woman, but it was like a thing people were probably just like, no one asked for this.
That is also very much the tone of the reviews.
Yeah.
It's like, who asked you, Mary?
No one wants this. Things are going so good right now. Maybe not for you, but
We're about to be in the Victorian era.
okay, calm down.
We're ascendant. The sun will never set on the English Empire. Stop making us feel bad about it.
Have you seen our navy? There's nothing to be sad about.
Have you seen our genocides?
Come on. We're colonizing like nobody's business over here.
We're going to live forever.
The world will never end.
It can only go up from here.
The sun never sets on the United Kingdom. Mary.
Surely our economy will only grow forever.
Ireland will never run out of potatoes.
Germany will never pose an existential threat to us.
Everything's gonna go swimmingly forever. It's the British way.
As you can tell by the fact that we are still governed by the British Empire.
Did I ever tell you that my whole family is from the town that is the epicenter of the Irish potato famine?
Was it your fault specifically?
It was, and I bear that guilt.
Every day?
Every day it weighs very heavily on me.
The day that you learn that the Irish potato famine did not need to be a famine and was in fact essentially engineered by the English government
is so rough. Yeah, also the day, and this is a huge departure from what we're here to do, so that for that I'm sorry, but the day that you realize that the population of Ireland pre-potato famine, it was larger than it is still today, is insane.
I love that we have managed to mention this fact. I think this is the 3rd time that this has been brought up on this podcast.
Well, it just is so jarring.
This podcast will not rest until the oppression of the Irish people has been avenged.
Justice for the famine.
Well, speaking of famine,
I bet that's gonna come to bear. This will all loop back, listener, don't worry.
Come with me
to the famine.
On a journey to the famine.
Volume 1.
and other things.
All right, Mary, where do we start?
We start with an introduction and, you know I love it, a framing device.
Get it, Mary.
Yay.
Yay.
And this one is really interesting.
Much better than that stupid Edgar Allan Poe and his total lack of, let's just drop you into short stories. It doesn't matter who these people are or where we are.
Nope.
You'll like it.
Well, hilariously, the framing device is narrated completely anonymously. We never find out who this person is. We do not even find out their gender.
Okay.
All they tell us is that they visited Naples in the year 1818 and were exploring the area, walking through the old temples and caves and all of this. It says, "We visited the so-called Elysian Fields and Avernus, and wandered through various ruined temples, baths, and classic spots. At length we entered the gloomy cavern of the Cumaean Sibyl." They find essentially a cave that has been sort of long undisturbed since the days of ancient Rome or Greece.
I can tell you from watching many Indiana Jones movies that this never ends well. Disturbing things that have been left alone for long periods of time.
It's always a great idea, and everyone should do it.
Everyone should poke around.
And what they find are hundreds and hundreds of like lost, forgotten Sibylline prophecies written on leaves.
Interesting.
And a bunch of them are written in modern languages. English, modern Italian, French.
Okay. This feels bad.
And so our narrator, with their companion, gathers up all of the prophecies that are in English and takes them home and slowly transcribes them. And it says, "I present the public with my latest discoveries in the slight Sibylline pages. Scattered and unconnected as they were, I have been obliged to add links and model the work into a consistent form. But the main substance rests on the truths contained in these poetic rhapsodies, and the divine intuition which the Cumaean damsel obtained from heaven." And so the novel that we are about to read is the work that this nameless person, specifically in 1818, has assembled from these lost Sibylline prophecies.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
So that is our framing device.
Consider me framed.
And then we open the actual novel, which is narrated in the first person.
Okay.
The implication is that the Sibyl, the prophetess, was channeling someone else.
Okay.
And then the rest of the novel is told as a straightforward first-person narrative.
Interesting.
Okay?
Okay.
Volume 1, Chapter 1 opens with our narrator introducing himself. He says, "I am the native of a sea-surrounded nook, a cloud-enshadowed land, which, when the surface of the globe presents itself to my mind, appears only as an inconsiderable speck in the immense whole, and yet, when balanced in the scale of mental power, far outweighed countries of larger extent and more numerous population. England now visits my dreams, in the semblance of a vast and well-manned ship, which mastered the winds and rode proudly over the waves. In my boyish days, she was the universe to me." And this is Lionel Verney speaking.
Lionel? I like that Lionel has already alluded to the power of the British Navy.
Yes. Lionel loves a boat, and he loves England. And what you will gather very subtly, because this is alluded to only in the first volume, it is never explicitly stated, you have to read between the lines, is that at the point when Lionel is writing this volume that we are reading, England is visiting him only in his dreams.
Okay, so England does not exist
Something has,
in the way that of his youth.
something has happened. ... But before we get there, we have to understand who Lionel is. His past, his present, his future.
Lionel, come to me, Lionel.
Lionel had a tough go of it from the beginning. His father was a nobleman who was witty, well-liked, and dissolute. Daddy Verney skated by on the strength of being one of the king's favorites for a long time. Like, that was how he kind of kept it together. But the king married an Austrian ice queen who
said no.
Did not like Verney Sr.
Bye-bye, Daddy Verney.
And this is a theme that we're going to see through the book. Daddy Verney is ultimately undone by his inability to self-regulate.
Okay.
He can't do it. He just can't keep his shit together.
Well, relatable.
And he ultimately banishes himself to the countryside as the result of sort of the shame of his continued inability to get his shit it together because he's constantly winding up in debt because he is gambling, and the king has bailed him out a couple of times, but his wife doesn't want him to bail him out anymore, and so off we go into the wilds of Cumberland where nobody important lives. And of course, Daddy Verney's rich boy nerves can't cope.
Not with being isolated out there in the country.
And he collapses.
Oh, like a dying star.
Yes, because what he needed more than air or food
Was validation.
according to the novel, was the excitement of pleasure, the admiration of the noble, and luxurious and polished living of the great.
So like a really relatable human.
He's a hothouse flower, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
He cannot be taken out of the greenhouse.
And a poor but kindly young woman decides to nurse Papa Verney back to health, which is how he becomes Papa Verney.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Nothing more rousing than being nursed by a young country maiden.
What Lionel calls an ill-fated marriage.
Well, sounds like Lionel's pretty astute.
The problem with Papa Verney is that, of course, he's now married and has 2 children to support. He could reach out to literally any of his rich friends or the king, but just like he became self-exiled to begin with, he couldn't control himself before, and now that he is suffering consequences, he is too proud and too ashamed.
So why not let everyone fail with you?
You got it!
Come on.
You are catching it. Yep, you are figuring this out admirably. It says, unaccustomed to industry, he knew not in what way to contribute to the support of his increasing family. And, before his necessities became so imperious as to compel him to some kind of exertion, he died.
These soft hands can't do work. I'd rather just be done.
And this is, we were talking before we started recording about how people don't give Jane Austen enough credit for being funny. And like, that is 100% sarcasm. That is very much Mary Shelley being like, meh.
Weak.
Before his necessities became so imperious as to compel him to some kind of exertion.
Before these soft hands could gain nary a single callus.
He died.
He died.
End sentence.
End novel. Volume 2.
On his deathbed, Daddy Verney sends a letter to the king asking him to take care of his children, but the family never receives a response. And then Verney's mother dies of the SADS.
Okay. So, Lionel's having like a cool, very chill childhood.
So Lionel and his sister, Perdita,
are like the dog in 101 Dalmatians.
Yes.
I wish his name was Pongo. That would bring me real joy.
Apparently, so Perdita translates to lost. That's what that name means in Latin.
Oh. What does Pongo mean?
I don't know. But Verney and Perdita are left to fend for themselves. And Lionel knows that he's sort of not like other boys.
And do we know roughly, like, is Lionel like a teen at this point? Is he like a young child?
When his parents die, he is 5.
Oh.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, like, just in time to go to work.
And Perdita is so young that she has no memory of their parents at all.
Okay.
Lionel barely remembers them. Perdita doesn't remember them at all.
Well, he remembers them enough to make a lot of very cutting commentary about his dad, but sure.
They're sort of farmed out to the local villagers. He becomes a shepherd, and she is serving as like a house servant.
Okay.
Lionel sort of becomes captain of the Lost Boys.
Right. Okay.
And he and all of the little shepherd lads are running around doing petty theft, vandalism.
Oh, like a little gang.
They're running around as a little shepherd gang doing
I love that.
destructive teenage boy shit.
You know, there used to be some small children boy gangs of Richmond.
Yes.
They had amazing names.
They had fantastic names.
And little logos.
Yeah.
Very cute.
Apparently, if you leave boys to their own devices,
They will always form a gang.
What you get are little boy gangs.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Young Lionel has no education,
Okay.
of course. He's getting by on physical prowess and sheer balls.
Cool.
And he's sort of beginning to build a notion of how the world works, because one of the big things about this novel is it's all about sensibility. It is all about emotion. It is all about the way that people behave based on the situations that they are in, right?
Okay.
So one of the reasons that this novel is so dense, and one of the reasons that it's kind of a struggle for contemporary readers, is that every beat of action takes forever, because you have to get a beautiful description of the scenery, and then you have to get a beautiful description of someone's feelings, and then you get 2 sentences explaining what actually happened, and then you get another page and a half of how they feel about what has happened.
Okay.
Right?
We're emotive.
We're very emotive, and
Okay.
so I'm trying to do a lot of this in summary because we have a lot of ground to cover.
Okay.
But what's important is that Lionel right now is sort of all brawn, no brains, and it says, "I wandered among the hills of civilized England, as uncouth a savage as the wolf-bred founder of old Rome. I owned but one law, that of the strongest, and my greatest deed of virtue was to never submit."
Okay, so just like a little like brawly brute.
Mm-hmm.
What's the little boy? The little boy in Les Mis, like the little street boy, Gavroche.
Yes.
He's that,
Yes.
but he's a shepherd in the English countryside,
And he's out stealing shit
and like just like debauching, but like not like in a probably truly harmful way, just sort of in a, or maybe a truly harmful way. Okay.
He does wind up in prison briefly.
Oh, okay.
And
Lionel.
Meanwhile, Perdita is all dreaminess, solitude, and distrust.
Fair.
And again, this is the perspective that the novel is preoccupied with. Because she is unloved, she becomes distant and cold and prefers her own company. She's just off-putting in a way.
Fair. They are in separate households.
Yes.
Do they see each other? Does he talk about her in sort of like a removed kind of way?
So he's keeping an eye on her.
Okay.
And he notes that, like, if she were growing up in a situation where she were loved and cared for and nurtured, Verney assures us that she would have been the object almost of adoration. All the genius that ennobled the blood of her father illustrated hers. A generous tide flowed in her veins. Her countenance, when enlightened by amiable feeling, might have belonged to a queen of nations. Her eyes were bright, her look fearless.
Poor Perdita.
Yeah, and Shelley, through Lionel's narration, compares Perdita to sort of like fertile soil. Whatever is sown there is what it reaps. And right now, the only thing that is being sown is distrust and neglect and want. And so she is metaphorically sort of a barren patch of soil, which also I think goes for Lionel, right?
Right.
He wouldn't say it because he's the one narrating, but what's being sown in Lionel is violence and sort of survival of the fittest and this
Yes.
might makes right mentality.
Mm-hmm. A little Lord of the Fliesy.
Little Lord of the Fliesy. As time passes and Lionel gets into more and more trouble, and he's ultimately arrested and he's sent to prison, and that just makes him worse. Ultimately, what happens is that all of his little confederates grow up and get responsible and move on with their lives. You know, they grow out of being shepherd boys, and they're
Dads and husbands.
They're
and
doing-
have like little real jobs.
moving on. They're not interested in doing crimes with Lionel anymore.
They've outgrown the gang.
And he finds himself
Alone.
an outcast. Yeah, and it says, "The old began to point at me as an example, the young to wonder at me as being distinct from themselves. I hated them, and began, last and worst degradation, to hate myself. I clung to my ferocious habits, yet half despised them. I continued my war against civilization, and yet entertained a wish to belong to it."
So he's kind of his dad.
Yeah, and also
In like in an inability to sort of regulate.
yes, he's all impulse and anger, but he is yearning for something better. And I think that is meant to partly be a byproduct of his sort of, the early 1800s were in kind of like pre-eugenicist thought.
Mm-hmm.
There's very much an idea of like they've inherited this sort of sensibility from their
Mhm.
father. It also kind of sounds like every teenage boy ever to me.
I mean, yeah. Aren't
Like-
they all full of just like rage and cum and spit and
Yeah,
Like-
it's like I felt rejected.
Mad Dog 2020
And that
like,
made me like lash out at people, but
Yeah.
also hate myself. And
yeah, listen to Linkin Park really loud. and
like I spent all of my time fighting against,
the thing that I knew I would eventually become and
and that I secretly wanted.
but also hated.
And it is at this juncture
Are we like a teen
yes,
or
we're
like a young adult?
an early-ish teen, I think.
Okay.
And change arrives in the form of Adrian, the boy who is not quite the Prince of England.
Oh,
And this is where Mary Shelley very casually drops on us that in the recent past, the last king of England has abdicated the throne. England has become a republic, and that happened in the year 2073.
I thought that it was 1818.
Nope.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay. We've moved many years into the future.
Yes.
Okay. And so England is a republic, which irony that Mary Shelley thought that would never happen. It's the year 2024. Nowhere
Well-
nearer.
You know what? It's not 2073 yet.
That's true. We've got a couple more years.
She did not think that we would have made it there by now.
Okay, so it's 2073.
Yes.
Lionel is a young person
Yes.
who's already been to jail.
Well, so it's not 2073.
Oh no, I guess it's past 2073.
Yes, 2073 is the recent past.
And is the year that the king says,
The king
No
abdicates
more.
because it is implied that he sort of had to.
or be beheaded.
Well,
Maybe not that extreme.
a little
but-
more polite than that.
Yeah, okay. As is the way.
And Adrian is the sole son of the House of Windsor.
Okay.
He's the sole son of the king who abdicated the throne.
The almost prince.
Indeed. Here's the funny thing. The House of Windsor was not yet the House of Windsor when this was written.
Correct. Interesting.
Uh-huh. So, 2073, the throne will be given up by the House of Windsor,
All good to know. Everyone keep this in your back pocket.
and then the world's going to end.
Well, we've had a good run.
I'll be pretty old by 2073.
Yeah, I'll be plenty old.
It's fine. And so Adrian is now the Earl of Windsor.
A pseudo-aristocracy still exists?
There is still an aristocracy.
Okay.
But England is a republic.
Okay.
There is a Lord Protector who is elected like every 3 years or so. But the aristocracy still exists.
All right. And so they've given him an estate.
He is the son of the House of Windsor. He's the Earl of Windsor. They have Windsor Castle. And his mother, do you remember the Austrian ice queen who
Yes.
hated Daddy Verney?
Yes.
That is his mom. And her sole goal in life is to make her son the king again.
Okay. Now, has King Dad died or
Yes.
just abdicated?
King Daddy is dead.
Okay.
And it's just
Ice Queen and Adrian.
and his sister, who we will meet later.
Okay. Does Adrian come to town?
So Lionel finds out that he's there, and Lionel has all of this resentment because he believes that his father appealed to this man's father for help and that they were ignored. And Lionel lashes out in the only way that he really has any capacity to do, which is poaching on the estate.
Sure.
Because Adrian sort of, I guess, almost famously in the area, like, loves all of the animals on his estate.
And so he's like, I know what'll really twist the knife.
Uh-huh.
I'll kill some pheasants on your land.
Pretty much.
You love those stupid birds.
That's how you show him.
I'll show you.
But Adrian is all intellect and sensitivity. And so Lionel is arrested twice. And ultimately, Adrian kind of sets up this thing where he has Lionel brought to him and he's like, I know who you are. My dad missed your dad and never got a letter from him. And I've been trying to find you.
Oh, twist.
My dad's dying wish was that I track you down and make sure you're okay.
Give you a big thumbs up.
And so Lionel and Perdita are sort of overnight whisked away into civilization.
After years of manual labor and thievery.
Yes. All of a sudden, they are getting education and poetry and philosophy and books
And baths.
and full meals,
and
clothes.
that fit.
Yeah.
Oh.
Shoes, probably.
Whoa. Not shoes.
But the thing that Lionel is most excited about is the sudden access to education, to intellect, to broadening his horizons.
Well, yes, I would assume, because I was going to soon ask the question of, well, when does Lionel get so learned? Because the quotes you've read, I'm like, this is not the language of a brutish child.
Yeah, and so it says, I was at once startled and enchanted by my sudden extension of vision when the curtain which had been drawn before the intellectual world had been withdrawn. Poetry and its creations, philosophy and its researches and classifications, alike awoke sleeping ideas in my mind and gave me new ones. I felt as the sailor who from the topmast first discovered the shore of America, and like him I hastened to tell my companions of my discoveries. But I was unable to excite in any breast the same appetite for knowledge that existed in mine.
Oh, so we're just like horny for learning.
We are horny for books.
Ugh. I guess I get it, Lionel.
And somewhat uniquely so, you know.
Right.
And then we kind of hop forward in time.
It seems like time is just like a whatever in this book.
It very much is, at least for the first bit.
Okay.
What's important to establish is that Lionel and Adrian are almost smitten with each other.
Besties.
It's a little homoerotic sometimes.
Okay.
Not textually, but subtextually, in the way that so many very intense male friendships can be a little, you know, little homosocial bonding.
Mm-hmm.
And Adrian and Perdita and Lionel have a couple of really wonderful years together on this estate. And then they get a little older and they're briefly scattered.
Is this the doing of Ice Queen?
No, it's more kind of the natural way of things. So,
Okay.
like, Lionel hits a certain age where it's time for him to kind of go off and get some essentially like career experience.
Okay.
So he's sent abroad to be a diplomat's secretary. Perdita is sent to be a companion to Evadne, who is the princess of the Free State of Greece.
Okay.
And she is also the object of Adrian's affections. He is just head over heels for Evadne.
Does he know her? Or is he obsessed with who he, like,
Yes, he knows her.
believes
So
her? Okay.
she's introduced a little bit in a rush, and then it's like, here she is. This is Evadne. And Perdita is kind of assigned to be her companion, and at the same time, Adrian is pursuing her pretty hotly.
Okay.
His mother is not a fan of this.
Okay.
Two things happen at once,
As things sometimes do.
as things are wont to do. Our third sort of important dude arrives on the scene,
Oh.
and this is Lord Raymond.
Okay.
Lord Raymond, the war hero.
Ooh.
Lord Raymond, the ambitious politician.
Ooh.
Lord Raymond, the Byron character insert.
Welcome, Lord Byron.
Byron.
By Raymond.
Lord Byron.
Tell me a poem. Tell me a poem, Lord Raymond.
And he's all masculinity. He's all ambition and drive and muscles, and he's power hungry. And he's also like an incredibly gifted public speaker, and he's very charismatic, and he's very, very charming.
Right. We're going to find this threatening.
At the same time, Adrian is sort of starting to come of age, and he is an idealist. He's an activist. He's a reformer. He officially refuses to take part in his mother's scheme of putting him on the throne. He's not having it. He doesn't think it should happen, and he's digging his heels in. At the same time, he has all of these like big ideas about how to fix England, and he's too young and too impatient to kind of play it cool.
As many young men are.
We've never heard of this before.
That's unheard of.
It says, he published his intention of using his influence to diminish the power of aristocracy, to effect a greater equalization of wealth and privilege, and to introduce a perfect system of republican government into England.
Okay. I'm just like envisioning this like like a 19-year-old who's like taken a couple philosophy classes and it's just like really full of his own ideas, and it's just like,
Well, no. So the novel actually takes pains to point out that his schemes are sound, his plans are good, but that he would be significantly more successful if he had the sort of patience and forbearance to play a little bit more of a game.
okay,
His mother, when she despairs of being able to sort of force him into her plans, her disappointment calcifies into hatred.
oh,
The way that sometimes happens, unfortunately, especially with parents who like pin their entire hopes on their children doing
the thing.
The thing.
Lord Raymond,
Yeah.
is he more of Ice Queen's age or their age?
He's their age. So
Oh,
this
okay.
he's
a contemporary.
he's a peer, more
Okay.
or less. So Adrian's mother comes to hate him, and then it's phrased as being infectious.
okay.
It says, strange to say, his mother's hatred of him was infectious. His enthusiasm for good, which did not exist. His contempt for the sacredness of authority. His ardor and imprudence were all the antipodes of the usual routine of life. The worldly feared him. The young and inexperienced did not understand the lofty severity of his moral views, and disliked him as being different from themselves.
Okay, so like her displeasure and hatred of him sets off sort of like a chain reaction of
Yeah.
all of a sudden he's like poisoned goods.
Yes. So no one knows what to make of him, and they hate him for it.
He's othered.
And Raymond comes rocking on the scene and is immediately set up as Adrian's
Replacement.
yes, his replacement, but also his polar opposite. And so
Yeah, because it sounds like Adrian's sort of this like got big ideas, but he's kind of like a quieter, softer person.
he's very much living a life of the mind and a life of the heart.
And then Raymond's like, look at me.
Yes. And so we're going to dwell on these a little bit because this is one of the most important conflicts of the book. You have Raymond, war hero of Greek independence, and you have Adrian, thoughtful, quiet, slightly alien activist and reformer. And it says, Raymond was emphatically a man of the world. His passions were violent. Self-gratification was of paramount object with him. He looked on the structure of society as but a part of the machinery which supported the web on which his life was traced. The earth was spread out as a highway for him, the heavens built up as a canopy for him. Adrian felt that he made part of a great whole. He owned affinity not only with mankind, but all nature was akin to him. The mountains and sky were his friends, the winds of heaven and the offspring of earth his playmates. His soul was sympathy, and dedicated to the worship of beauty and excellence. Adrian despised the narrow views of the politician, and Raymond held in supreme contempt the benevolent visions of the philanthropist.
Okay, so we are polar opposite.
It's individualism versus collectivism. It's idealism versus cynicism. But one of the things that's really, really interesting here is they are set up as both kind of embodying the ideals of romanticism, but in different ways. They are almost the two halves
Two sides of the same coin, a little bit.
yeah, of like what romanticism could be, and I think in Shelley's mind, some of its excesses as well. They're both a little incomplete. Adrian doesn't have any ambition at all. Raymond has too much.
Right. They're the two sides of the bell curve.
Yes. And, predictably, guess what Evadne does?
I'm going to guess that she picks the other side of the coin.
She immediately falls in love with Raymond.
How crushing for poor
Just-
Adrian.
Right off the bat.
Poor, poor, soft Adrian.
And Adrian falls to pieces. Like literally, like he has a mental breakdown. And is whisked away to ?
Unknown.
Yeah.
To a bath somewhere.
Yeah, he just straight up vanishes.
And where is Lionel at this juncture?
Lionel's off being a diplomat's secretary.
Do we know where?
I think he's in Italy.
Okay. So is Lionel still telling the story right now?
Yes. So he finds all of this out when
Because
he
of
gets
Perdita?
back because Perdita has been there the whole time.
I see.
Evadne is in love with Lord Raymond.
Is it reciprocated?
Lord Raymond is in the act of falling in love with Perdita.
Of course. A comedy of errors.
Adrian is in love with Evadne.
Yes. And Pongo is in love with Perdita.
And Lord Raymond is supposed to marry Adrian's sister, Idris.
Who we have not met yet.
Who we have not met yet. Who we meet
Now. Where's she been?
She has been off somewhere, ? But what's important is that the Countess of Windsor wants Raymond to marry Idris. This is her sort of plan B. Now that we know Adrian's not going to take the throne, the plan is to have Lord Raymond marry Idris and become the King of England. The goal is for him to get himself installed Lord Protector and then
just take it
just
over.
Reinstate the monarchy.
Okay.
So now politics start happening, and there are more politics in this novel than you would expect.
I would have expected none, so any is more than I expected.
Well, and one of the things that really stood out to me about this novel versus what the apocalyptic novel has become is that we, I think, have become very acclimated to stories of apocalypse that sort of hop straight to the end of the collapse.
Yes.
They jump over the in-between parts.
Or the, how we got here.
This novel dwells very heavily on the lead up to collapse, which I had never really thought about, but is almost more interesting because what she's doing is drawing out portraits of all of these men who are going to become very important as society begins to come apart at the seams. And she is showing you from when they are quite young men why they are making the decisions they are making and what their fatal flaws are. So that by the time they are making the decisions that play into the end of the world, you know why. And I don't know, I kind of wish contemporary apocalyptic narratives did that more.
Yeah, because I feel like it's why I don't read a lot of apocalyptic novels, actually, because they all end up feeling very similar. Because, yes, you can change the way the world ends, but they're almost always about the actual ending, to your point, and not how it came to be. Or they've all, I feel like on the whole, they've gotten very trite.
Yeah, I remember reading the Walking Dead comics, and there's so many of them.
So many.
And I think I got to the third or fourth sort of omnibus book and kind of hit a wall where it was yes, man was the real monster all along.
Thank you. Get it. Oh, yeah. When put in terrible situations, people will be terrible. Oh, no.
Yeah. So, politics.
Let's do it.
So, Lord Raymond, he's supposed to marry Idris, and that's going to kind of set him up to reclaim the English throne.
Are we in England for all of this? Or
yes.
Are we in Greece?
We are in England.
Okay.
This is all happening in England.
So, Grecian princess...
Oh, yes.
Is in England.
She is in England, and this is my bad. So Lord Raymond is a war hero because he has been helping the Greeks fight for their independence from Turkey.
Okay.
Which was a conflict that was happening contemporarily. Lord Byron died. The real Lord Byron died in Greece after volunteering to go help the fight for Greek independence.
Really on the nose, Mary.
Yes. Also, he died of a fever. He never actually got to do any fighting.
I was about to say, I didn't think that he actually saw any action.
He did not. He just died. But Lord Raymond is a war hero, and he's been off helping the Greeks fight for their independence, which is a conflict that Mary Shelley apparently thought was going to still be happening in
the
2090s.
Yeah.
Which we are in the 2090s, by the way.
Okay.
Although I say that, and I feel like there are conflicts happening now that have been going since the 1800s and could still be going.
True.
40 years from
I
now.
mean, there's definitely things that have been happening since we were small children.
And well beyond.
Yeah.
So I shouldn't be too glib, I guess.
Fair enough.
Anyway, this is when we see Lord Raymond in action because Parliament is putting forward a bill that would bar the monarchy from ever being reintroduced in England, and specifically would make it treason to attempt to alter the form of England's government at all.
And is Lord Protector their version of like a prime minister?
I think Mary Shelley is modeling it after American
President?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the president.
Okay.
She doesn't get too much into the
Machinations
the
of
parliamenty
that, yeah.
parts, but the Lord Protector seems to have significantly more sweeping powers than the president would have in the 1800s, because obviously the executive branch has just turned into a bloated tick of powers. But that is a whole other...
While also holding it's like a very... That's a whole thing.
Yep. But that's not our concern right now.
Not right now.
Our concern right now
What
is...
about Lord Raymond?
The 2090s, when Lord Raymond, for very obvious reason, is throwing all of his weight behind
Not passing this bill.
making sure that this bill does not pass. And this bill is very popular, but he's so charismatic and he's so charming, and he gives this speech.
But he is not a member of Parliament, or he is?
He is.
Oh, okay.
I think this might be the House of Lords.
Okay. Well, I guess if he's a lord, that
Yes.
makes sense.
Parliament is composed of...
House of Lords and
the House of Commons.
Commons.
And so I think she's kept that system pretty much untouched.
Okay. He's charming people with his riz.
Yes, and I think as an American of the 21st century, you're going to find his argument a little familiar and a little disconcerting being projected at you from
Yuck.
way back when.
Let's do it.
He says, he asserted that each individual under the English monarchy was, then as now, capable of attaining high rank and power, with only one exception, that of the function of chief magistrate. And for this one exception, to what did it amount? The nature of riches and influence forcibly confined the list of candidates to a few of the wealthiest, and it was much to be feared that the ill humor and contention generated by this triennial struggle would counterbalance its advantages in the impartial eye.
Yuck. All right.
So his argument is, why not have a monarchy? Like, what's so bad about a monarchy? Because only the rich and powerful can become the Lord Protector.
So what's the difference?
And these elections, these every 3-year elections, cause so much contention and so much strife that it hardly seems like they're worth it.
Yeah. Well, when you put it like that, Lord Raymond,
It's just like, can't you hear like some right-wing ghoul
yes, I
making
don't like
that
it at all.
argument verbatim, like on Joe Rogan?
Yes, I also the beginning where it's like anyone has the okay, bootstraps. Calm down.
Yeah.
Calm down.
And it works. Raymond carries the day and the motion fails to pass. Now, all this does is leave the door open.
Okay.
Meanwhile, at the same time that Raymond is taking these big steps towards becoming the king, and he tells Lionel overtly that he wants to become the King of England. He thinks England should go back to being a monarchy. There is only one problem. He is head over heels in love with Perdita.
Yep.
And Perdita is not going to get him the throne of England.
No. And who does Perdita return his affections?
Yes.
Oh.
Raymond and Perdita are in love with each other, and it's described as this like really beautiful blossoming. They make each other so happy.
How lovely.
But for Raymond to...
Yes, it's like all of his ambition
is tied up in this loveless marriage with Idris, who also does not want to marry him because she and Lionel are,
of course,
desperately in love with each other.
Of course they are. But also Greek princess,
also Evadne,
is in love with Raymond, but unrequitedly so.
Yes. Okay. And she, after throwing Adrian over, she has disappeared. She has gone off stage left.
Oh, okay.
She's returned to Greece or something. She's gone.
Oh, okay.
And the rest of Volume 1 is essentially the rise and fall of Raymond and Perdita.
I don't like that it's rise and fall. That's a bummer. Seems like
you're like, wait a minute, we just got here.
Seems like their love is like nice.
It is.
And yet.
Ultimately, love wins out. Raymond, who again is sort of king of the romantics, cough, cough, Byron, cough, cough.
Mm-hmm. Chooses love.
Can't resist pursuing the woman that he loves, even if it undoes all of his ambitions, because as we established, he is governed primarily by self-interest, and love is more powerful than ambition, or at least
In this moment.
Yep. You got it.
Yeah. My feeling, my gut says that the person who's really going to be wounded by this is Perdita.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh.
Things are always so great for women.
She's going to become a really resented member of this story.
Being a woman is awesome and never goes poorly.
Never. Everything's always coming up roses for women, even now.
You know what? Let's just take a moment and let's
To love their love.
the quote that I pulled. Let's just sit with it for a minute.
Okay.
It was pleasant to see the haughty Raymond and the reserved Perdita changed through happy love into prattling, playful children, both losing their characteristic dignity in the fullness of mutual contentment. A night or two ago, Lord Raymond, with a brow of care and a heart oppressed with thought, bent all his energies to silence or persuade the legislators of England that a scepter was not too weighty for his hand, while visions of dominion, war, and triumph floated before him. Now the hopes of his ambition were complete, when he pressed the small fair hand of Perdita to his lips.
I mean, it's sweet.
It is. Lionel trots off, retrieves Adrian, who is sort of
Put
mostly
himself back together.
recovered his wits. Lionel and Idris fall madly in love. The Countess of Windsor attempts to kidnap Idris and ship her off to be married to some German, because her hopes of marrying her off to Raymond have failed. And Idris, it's very dramatic. She rides off in the snow in the middle of the night and she collapses into Lionel's arms, and Lionel whisks her away to London to Adrian, and they all get together and everyone is happy.
And then the next page.
But there's this period, and there are several years that are kind of elided in the space of a paragraph. Raymond and Perdita are married. Idris and Lionel are married. Adrian is happy and living his life of the mind. Raymond and Perdita have a daughter named Clara. Idris and Lionel have several children who don't get named until later in the narrative.
Cool.
They have this sort of Edenic period of happiness together. And one of the things that you'll notice in Volume 1 is that we are kind of tracing the ascent of man in a way. Like starting with Lionel out on the heath, sort of living the life of the savage.
And then educated, brought high by learning.
Yes. And they are kind of ascended into this temporary Eden where they are living this blessed existence without any ambition, without any cares. They are content simply to create and reflect and read and
Be in love.
enjoy nature. Like it very much dwells on how much time they spend in the gardens and in the forest, and it's lovely.
Uh-oh.
But somebody has to run England is the thing.
Sure. Of course they do. Someone must be Lord Protector.
And this is also a recurring theme. As soon as these characters find happiness, they are almost always undermined by duty. Kind of. It depends on their relative willingness to concede to duty. But
Okay.
somebody has to run England, and it is time to elect a new Lord Protector. And Lord Raymond, insists that they all go to London to be a part of the election. And as soon as they get there, Adrian and Raymond individually go to Lionel and say that they want to nominate the other one.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
So Raymond goes to Lionel and is like, Adrian should be the Lord Protector. Just look at him, basically. And Lionel goes to Adrian and essentially says, Raymond wants to nominate you for the Lord Protector. And Adrian's like, absolutely not. You know who should be Lord Protector? Raymond. Adrian wins out and convinces Lionel. And in turn, the two of them convince Raymond to stand for Lord Protector. It's very dramatic. We really don't have the time. Perdita is a mess about it. There's a point where it seems like she might just like off herself because she can't take the strain of
Knowing whether he will win or not.
the emotional roller coaster of wanting him to succeed and being proud of him and liking the idea of being like the Lord Protector's wife, but also she's having like almost visions of this being their undoing.
As is the way.
But suffice it to say, Lord Raymond
Becomes the Lord Protector.
becomes the Lord Protector, and he goes from, who, me? To, yeah, I am going to rule the whole world with breathtaking speed.
Great.
Uh-huh.
We love to see how power just, like, really warps people.
It takes time. So he starts out with lots of big ideas, right? He's a reformer. He wants to fix things. He's very enthusiastic, and he is undertaking public works, and he's trying to relieve the burdens on the poor, and he's trying to, he's embraced a lot of Adrian's ideas and is now trying to execute them. And then Evadne turns up.
Oh.
Uh-huh.
Why?
Well, it's pretty convoluted, the way that they are reintroduced to each other. But what it boils down to is that Evadne's family have suffered sort of a catastrophic loss. She is back in London. She has no money. She has no friends. She is living in a slum. And she swears him to secrecy because she is too proud for anyone to know what is happening.
Okay.
And so he begins to go see her in secrecy. And it is the first secret
That he has ever kept from poor Perdita.
Yes.
Great.
Uh-huh. It all comes to a head when Perdita is throwing like a celebration commemorating sort of the commencement of his reign.
Mm-hmm.
And he's supposed to be there, and he doesn't show up because he is busy taking care of Evadne, who's had some kind of a turn.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Is the implication that he is truly, like, visiting her out of friendship? Or is the implication that he has, like, growing romantic feelings for her?
There is nothing to suggest growing romantic feelings for her. But Evadne is Greece and ambition and war, right? She represents all of these things. She is the princess, the disgraced, penniless, unloved, abandoned princess.
Who needs someone to swoop in and save her.
She represents all of his unfinished ambitions. He did not want to be Lord Protector. He wanted to be king.
Yes.
He wanted to make war. He wanted to wage wars of conquest. He didn't want to do all of this public works bullshit. He doesn't want to be swanning about in ballrooms on Perdita's arm, being polite to people. He didn't want to do any of that shit. And he can't resist it. And she's losing him, and she knows it.
Poor Perdita.
Eventually, there's the way that these things are, there's like a complication and a ring and a note, and she sees the note and misinterprets it and thinks that he's been cheating on her. And they have it out. And he won't break Evadne's confidence. And he is mad at her for being upset with him.
For not trusting him and not being like, I can't tell you this, but I need you to trust me.
And he lashes out at her. They get into a big fight. Like, they are shouting at each other. Perdita's decision is essentially that because he has betrayed her, and because he refuses to deny betraying her, at least he refuses to explain what's going on, that they must be parted. She's like, I loved you too much, and I cannot be in a mere marriage of convenience with you. I cannot sit here and pretend.
All right. Balls on Perdita, like that.
Says, Raymond rose. His voice was broken, his features convulsed, his manner calm as the earthquake-cradling atmosphere. He replied, I am rejoiced that you take my decision so philosophically. Doubtless you will play the part of the injured wife to admiration. Sometimes you may be stung with the feeling that you have wronged me, but the condolence of your relatives, the pity of the world, the complacency which the consciousness of your own immaculate innocence will bestow, will be excellent balm. And me you will never see more. Right?
That is brutal.
That is so mean.
Savage. That is so savage.
That's so nasty that the first time I read it, I was like, she must have heard somebody do that to somebody else. Like,
Yes, that is born of witnessing. Like, that's not just like a...
Somebody either said that to her or to one of her friends. I guarantee it.
That is rough.
It's fucking rough. But Shelley also notes, he forgot that each word he spoke was false. He personated his assumption of innocence even to self-deception. Have not actors wept as they portrayed imagined passion? A more intense feeling of the reality of fiction possessed Raymond. He spoke with pride. He felt injured.
Oh.
Yeah, and that's what
bummer.
That's what I mean about the importance of sensibility in this novel. Is she'll deliver something like that where you're just like, fuck you, dude, like Jesus Christ,
and then turn around and be like, oh,
yeah, and he's wrong, but whomst among us have not at some point been kind of nasty, even though we were at fault?
Yeah, that's a very human thing.
But Raymond cannot cope with the collapse of his marriage.
Despite it being his doing.
Yes. He lacks the self-control to continue governing when even one thing goes wrong in his private life.
Cool.
And so he starts drinking heavily and partying his ass off, and whoops, there's no one to govern England.
Great. I mean, not an unknown situation, I think.
I feel like this has definitely happened to at least one American president.
I'm sure.
And so by the time Lionel and Adrian turn up to be like,
hey, bud.
Like, they literally have to go pull him out of a party. They have to pull him away from a gambling table.
He's in a gambling hell.
No, he's in the Lord Protector's mansion, and it's just full of other drunk dudes. Like, he's just turning it into
a frat house.
Exactly.
I'll show you.
They have to go.
I don't need a wife. What would I do without my bros? Look at all my bros. Who needs a wife? I just have all my bros.
Broing it up in the Lord Protector's house. Woo!
Whoop, whoop.
Protect this.
Suck it. I just like a bunch of dudes with like wizard staffs of like natty lights.
Yes.
But it's not natty light. It's like
bottles of
claret. Yeah.
Just taped together.
Look at my mountain of claret.
Dangerous.
Yeah.
So they literally pull him away from
Cool.
the gambling table. And this is where we find out that Raymond probably never should have been Lord Protector to begin with.
Yeah, maybe they shouldn't have convinced him to do this.
Charisma and ambition are not everything. When they pull him away to basically be like, bro,
what are you doing?
you need to govern the country, he says, you do not understand. This is only part of a system, a scheme of tyranny to which I will never submit. Because I am protector of England, am I to be the only slave in its empire? My privacy invaded, my actions censured, my friends insulted? But I will get rid of the whole together. Be you witnesses. And he tears off the insignia of his office and he throws it on the table.
What a whiny, like, bitch statement. Oh, I'm the only one who doesn't get to party around here?
Which,
I'm the Lord Protector?
just like, geez,
I'm the most powerful man in England, so, like, I can't bro down?
some things literally never change.
Never. Oh, like, I'm not, like, I can't go out and, like, get a little wild with my bros because I'm the Lord Protector? Ugh.
Yeah.
Okay. We're taking a lot of emotional, like, roller coaster swings here because I'm like, I like him. I hate him. Oh, I feel for him. Fuck this man. Okay, cool.
That's called good writing.
Yeah. You're
Yeah.
doing it, Mary. You're doing it. At your lowest point.
And then he steams off to Greece.
Oh.
Yep.
And is like, I'm literally done.
Yeah. No, he just quits. He just walks out.
Okay, cool.
Mhm.
Is Avad, does he take her with him?
Nope.
Okay, so he's just like, let me go back to the place where I was the most young and virile and powerful and ambitious, and I'll just probably drink a bunch of ouzo.
You got it, pretty much, except that he's steamed off to go be a war hero again.
Are they at war still?
He's gonna go help the Greeks fight for their independence.
But haven't they already done that? Didn't he do that before?
These conflicts, they are long.
Oh. Well, he came back so it felt like victorious that it
He was already a war hero, but they hadn't won.
Oh, okay.
He's off to go be the Napoleon of the Greek independence movement.
Cool. Does this end with him on a tiny island?
Well, so We are almost at the closure of Volume 1.
Okay.
He steams off, and Adrian goes with him. And then Adrian comes back to Windsor,
Okay.
where Perdita and
Their children.
Lionel and, yes, and their poor abandoned child.
Yep. Clara.
Clara. And Adrian comes back to tell them about the war. This is I think this is kind of the other important takeaway of this chapter, right? Is so Raymond has gone off to do what he is best at. And Adrian comes back and is reflecting on the experience of the battlefield. He says, I shall not be suspected of being averse to the Greek cause. I know and feel its necessity. It is beyond every other a good cause. I have defended it with my sword, and was willing that my spirit should be breathed out in its defense. Freedom is of more worth than life, and the Greeks do well to defend their privilege unto death. But let us not deceive ourselves. The Turks are men. Each fiber, each limb is as feeling as our own. And every spasm, be it mental or bodily, is as truly felt in a Turk's heart and brain as in a Greek's. And Adrian goes on essentially to say that he can't do it, that he does not have the capacity to look at the carnage on a battlefield and to find it worthwhile. And Raymond does. And this is what separates them. He says, I have learned in Greece that one man, more or less, is of small import, while human bodies remain to fill up the thinned ranks of the soldiery, and that the identity of an individual may be overlooked so that the muster roll contains its full numbers. All this has a different effect upon Raymond. He is able to contemplate the ideal of war, while I am sensible only to its realities. He is a soldier, a general. He is always successful and bids fair, at the same time that he acquires high name and station for himself, to secure liberty, probably extended empire, to the Greeks. I cannot follow, for I do not sympathize in their dreams of massacre and glory.
Same.
Yeah.
Same, my guy.
So where we are closing
Is we're really drawing the two of them into
is that
comparison.
we are, but also, so Adrian has now twice rejected any kind of power.
Mm-hmm.
Lionel and Idris are chilling,
There.
married, hanging out at Windsor. Raymond has steamed off not just to fight for Greek independence, right? That's what one of the things that he's saying there is they are in the process of surpassing just the fight for independence. They are now more than likely going to establish an expansion of the Greek empire, and they are committing what we did not yet call war crimes on the way.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we're leaving our principles, except that Adrian comes back. We get this sort of meditation on the rightness or wrongness of war. And then we find out very closely thereafter that Raymond has been captured.
Okay.
And Perdita, upon finding out that her husband is being subjected to God knows what conditions as a prisoner of war, decides that the only course of action is to go get him.
Oh.
Uh-huh.
All right, Perdita.
And so we are all packing up.
Oh, the whole fam.
And we are off to Greece.
All of us.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay.
We're going to go get him back.
All right, Mary. What a way to end a volume.
Sorry, I think they leave Idris behind. I think it's Adrian, Lionel, and Perdita.
And Idris stays with all the children.
Yes. And we are off to get Raymond in volume 2 of The Last Man.
At any cost. Even though he basically said, I never want to see you again.
Yep. Here, I'll even give you a little passage to close. The light curling waves bore us onward, and old ocean smiled at the freight of love and hope committed to his charge. It stroked gently its tempestuous plains, and the path was smoothed for us. Day and night, the wind right aft gave steady impulse to our keel. Nor did rough gale, or treacherous sand, or destructive rock interpose an obstacle between my sister and the land which was to restore her to her first beloved, her dear heart's confessor, a heart within that heart. End of volume 1.
Get it, Mary.
Get it, Mary.
Damn.
So,
What a way to end.
that's what do we have any thoughts about volume 1?
I feel like there's a lot left to happen in Volume 2 and Volume 3 because the world has not even yet begun to end. Thus far, I'm about it. Are we to believe that things in 2090 are technologically and mostly the same as they are in 1820?
Yeah, so there's
Like, there's no fantastical, like, talk of inventions or, like...
yes and no. There's some stuff. There's a point where Lionel needs to get somewhere very quickly, and he hops into a sort of fantastical hot air balloon that has like wings that's like steerable.
Oh.
And there are other parts where there'll be little references to just like, oh, I had an apparatus to create light on me, you know, like that kind of thing.
Okay.
But we are still using carriages. We are still using horses.
Okay.
Sailing has not changed much. And granted, I don't think that was her chief investment.
No, and I wouldn't think so. She's not. She was a science fiction writer in as much as you could be, I think, at the time. But I don't think that she set out to be a science fiction writer.
No. One of the things I will say that I found really interesting about reading this was it made me realize... So are you familiar broadly with sort of the distinction between literary fiction and genre fiction?
Tell the audience.
So boiled down very, very simply, the kind of delineation is that genre fiction is plot first and character second. The characters serve to move the plot forward. And all of the genres have their own specific plot constraints and expectations. And the idea is that you
Tropes.
Yes. In genre fiction, it is generally considered not just poor form, but bad writing to stray too far outside of the conventions of the plot, because that's not what readers want. Literary fiction is character first and plot second. There are not that many apocalyptic narratives that are so determinedly character first. This is a novel that is about what it feels like to live through the end times, primarily. It is less concerned with the practicalities
Of the end times.
than it is with
the feelings.
yes.
I think that's fairly unique.
I'd like to see more of it.
Well, I think to the point that, like, genre fiction gets trite very quickly if you're reading a lot of the same genre.
Yes.
Especially apocalyptic, I think, because at this point in the year of our Lord 2024, there's only so many ways you can end the world
Yeah.
creatively at this point. Whereas the emotions of going through that's something different.
Yes. And there is a lot in here that you are not going to expect. But we're going to save that for volumes 2 and 3.
I'm very excited.
And I think that's it for us today.
Yeah.
Is there anything you would like to, I don't know, plug?
Buy a book.
Yeah.
Buy a book from, like, a local bookstore.
That's a good plug.
That's all I got today.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for recounting Volume 1.
I enjoyed it. Can't wait to get back together
for Volume 2 and Volume 3.
volumes 2 and 3. And thank you all for joining us. Just a reminder that we would really appreciate it if you wanted to leave us a review or tell a friend about us.
Put it in your Instagram stories.
Yeah,
People love Instagram stories.
Yeah, come say hi to us on Instagram.
Sure.
Share our videos.
Sure. Like them.
People trust their friends' recommendations more than anything else, and it brings me great joy to share my dumb little book obsessions with the world. So do me a favor if you feel like it, and tell a pal.
We'll see you in a week.
We'll see you in a week.
For Volume 2.
For Volume 2. God, I can't wait. It gets weird.
I'm very excited because I feel like I came into this with like a real thought of what this was going to be, and Volume 1 did not really line up with that. So I have high hopes for 2 and 3.
There's almost nothing that's going to happen in this novel that's not going to make you go, what?
Great.
All right. As always, if you can, this week, this month, this pay period, consider supporting a living author. Because my God, they could really, really use the love.
Please.
Bye.
Bye.
Didn't Read It was created, written, recorded, and edited by me, Grace Todd. You can follow the show on Instagram or Twitter at Didn't Read It.
Our theme song is Books, written, performed, and recorded by William Albritton.
For sources cited and a full list of episodes, you can visit us at didntreaditpod.com.
If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us a review. It makes a big difference, and we appreciate it immensely.
If you did not enjoy the show, we are accepting applications for a full-time nemesis at didntreaditpod@gmail.com. Special thanks to Black Iris Social Club in Richmond, Virginia, and to Pesca Trio Publishing.